new year, it is time for me to reflect on all the books I read in 2023, and it is time to talk about my favorite reads of 2023. You know how with the Oscars, they can have up to 10 selections for best movies, but they don't always nominate 10 movies? Let's just say I was not able to get to 10 favorite reads, but that's okay. I got close. If you're new here, my name is Cherie, and this is my life as a reader. So I have 9 books in front of me. I did not rank all of them, but I do have a top 3 ranking, and we'll get to those later. So the first book I can talk about is Fireborne by Rosaria Munda. This is the first book in a young adult fantasy trilogy, I believe. It's called The Aurelian Cycle, and this book gave me everything that Fourth Wing did not. So this follows 2 characters that met in an orphanage, and they are currently in like a military school, a dragon military school, and they are competing to become first rider. Annie is an orphan whose family was killed by dragon fire, and then we have Lee, who is from an aristocratic family, but they were part of the old regime, and Lee is kind of hiding in plain sight. I really enjoyed this. I enjoyed this quite a bit. I end up picking up the second and third book in this series. I just haven't gotten to it yet, but I enjoyed the story. I enjoyed the characters. I enjoyed the political aspect of everything. There is a slow burn possible romance in this that is very, very slow burn, and I appreciate that. I appreciated that so much. The next book I'll talk about is Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix. I read this over the summer, and it kind of stuck with me without me really expecting it to. I quite enjoyed this. It's a comedic horror novel, and it follows a Final Girl support group, and one of the final girls ends up dying, and the other ones are trying to make sure that they also don't end up dying. There were a lot of slasher tropes in this that I love, and I love slasher movies. The main characters are also kind of based off of final girls in slasher movies that we've all seen, like Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, Scream, Texas Chainsaw Massacre as well, if I'm remembering correctly. But I really enjoyed reading this. It was a lot of fun. It is the second Grady Hendrix book that I've read. I think I own 2 others. I believe I own 2 others. Next up is a series that I finally started reading in December, and that is the Percy Jackson series. I finally started reading it. I am currently vlogging my way through it, so that video will be out at some point, hopefully in January. But what can I say about this series? It is so much fun. It is such a good time. These kids, they go on an adventure. They are so my children, especially Annabeth. Annabeth is my child. She's my child. I have not watched the adaptation yet. I wanted to watch it after I finish the series. I am currently on book 4, so that will be done soon. It will be done soon, just not yet. But once I finish reading the series, I will get to the TV show. Next, we have Bloodmarked by Tracy Deonn. This is the sequel to Legendborn, and it's part of, is it the Legendborn cycle? I don't know what this series is called. I don't know how many books are going to be in this series, but I read this earlier this year. I was going through like a reading slump, so there are some parts of it I had to kind of remember, kind of go back to and stuff like that, but I did enjoy this. And the love triangle, I don't know if it's a love triangle, whatever. This is how you do it. This is how you do it if you do a love triangle, because you don't want either to not end up with the person. You want everyone to end up together and everyone to just be happy. But if you don't know what Legendborn is about, it tells the story of this young girl. She joins a program at the University of North Carolina. It's like an early education program, and she goes to live on campus. And it's something she wanted to do because she wanted to get away from her life, I guess you can say, because her mother had passed away. But there was something weird about the way that her mother passed away, and she kind of wants to figure that out. And she ends up finding out about this secret society, and it ends up being in Arthurian legend secret society. So we get King Arthur stuff in this. And just like I've said with the other books that I've already talked about, it's so much fun. It's such a good time. Next I have The Weight of Blood by Tiffany D. Jackson. So this is like a more modern version of Carrie by Stephen King. And I had so much fun reading this. And I listened to this on audiobook. There are like excerpts from a podcast, and you're listening to it like it is an actual podcast. The audiobook is very good. And Tiffany D. Jackson has yet to miss with me. Now, I've only read 2 books by her, but I will change that. I definitely want to read more. The next one is Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. And this book, this book is hilarious. I believe I talked about this during the mid-year wrap-up, and this book really is hilarious. It follows this author who has not really had the best time, I guess you can say, as an author in the publishing world. Like, her books, they're fine. They get released, but they aren't a big deal, and she thinks she should be a big deal. And she has a friendship with another author who is a big deal, and her books are made to be a huge deal. But something happens where that author ends up dying, and our not big deal author ends up with that other author's manuscript that she had been working on, and no one has seen or read any of it. Now, there is a difference between these 2 authors. The one that ends up dying is Asian, and our other author is white. And when the white author decides that she's going to take the other author's manuscript and publish it as herself, things get a little messy. Me saying messy is being kind, but I definitely think that this book is a satire, and it's pretty funny. It was really funny, and also felt accurate. Okay, now we're down to the top 3, and I would say ranking these was pretty hard. It was pretty hard to do, because for a moment there, I was second guessing my decision, but I am sticking with it. These are my top 3 books of 2023. And at number 3, I have The Final Empire, or Mistborn, whatever you want to call this book, by Brandon Sanderson, which is the first book in the Mistborn trilogy, or I guess you can say the first era. I read this book over the summer, and I loved it very, very much. I did a reading vlog of my time reading this book, and it does have spoilers. So if you haven't read Mistborn and you watch that vlog, it will spoil you, but I quite enjoyed this. The character development was amazing. The setting was fantastic. The magic system made so much sense. I really, really, really liked this book, and it made me cry. It made me cry. It did. It did. It made me cry. Now, what is this book about? I have not mentioned what this book is about. So this tells a story of if the Dark Lord actually succeeds and the hero ends up dying. The hero doesn't win. And that was in the past. That's just setting up this world. But in this book, we have a group of characters coming together to try to defeat the Dark Lord and pretty much try to save the world. And just talking about this book and thinking about it makes me realize I really, 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 really need to get to the next book soon. I honestly thought The Final Empire, or Mistborn, was going to be number 2 on this list, but this book has stuck with me all throughout the year. And it's probably, I think it might be the only romance I've read this year. And also, it might not even be considered a romance. It might be more considered literary fiction. Yeah, I'm pretty sure if you went to the bookstore, this would not be in the romance section of the bookstore. It would be in like the general fiction section. Anyway, this is romantic comedy by Curtis Sittenfeld. I loved this book. This is one of the only book of the month books that I actually read that I got this year. I definitely need to start reading those books more. But this follows a woman who works for like a fictional version of Saturday Night Live. And her really good friend on the show, like her best friend on the show, I think he's another staff writer. Is he also act on the show? doesn't matter. But he is dating this actress. And they get engaged quickly. And then you have a singer who comes on the show, and he is the main guest as well as the musical guest. And our main character and him end up spending time together through that week. We also get to see like a behind the scenes at a show like Saturday Night Live, which I thought was really cool. And then just the rest of the story, story about Sally, our main character, story about Noah, the love interest. And I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed this book. I kind of want to reread this right now. And at number 1, my favorite book of 2023, which I'm sure a lot of you have guessed, is Lightbringer by Pierce Brown. The 6th book in the Red Rising saga. This book. I also did a reading vlog on this. And this is actually spoiler free. So that reading vlog for this is spoiler free. I think about this book quite often. I've thought about this book quite often this year. This book also made me cry. And I just thought about the moment of when those tears happened and why those tears happened. And I may need a moment. Anyway, I love this story. This book, I know I cried. But coming off of Dark Age and then coming to read this, it is lighter in a sense. Because Dark Age was dark. And I understand the book is called Dark Age, but that book was dark. It was also my favorite book that I read that year that it came out. But this story, just continuing Darrow's journey in this world. And if you don't know what Red Rising is about, Darrow is a red, which is the lowest part of the caste system. He and his family and all of their friends and loved ones are working to make sure that Mars is habitable for other people. But something happens and Darrow learns that he and his people have been lied to this entire time, and he decides to help in the rebellion. I think that's the best way I can discuss it without giving up any spoilers. I think that's the best way. But this book, the characters that we met in the last few books, as well as characters that have been around since the beginning, we got to see them and we got to interact with them. And I think I liked them more and hated some even more. And it's not a thing where I say I hate them, where I think they're a bad character. It's I hate them because of what they've done and they deserve to be punished. And death is not a strong enough punishment. So those are my favorite reads of 2023. I would love to know if you've read any of these, if you enjoyed reading any of these, if you plan to pick up any of these. Also, what was your favorite book of 2023? Let me know down below. But as always, thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I appreciate your support. And I will see you all in a new video.